If you're Brooklyn, there has to be at least a little part of you that's nervous about him wanting to leave. If you're Brooklyn, there's got to also be a part of you, and I thought about this last night. Well, maybe, what if we did trade James Harden for Ben Simmons in the package that the Sixers were offering Houston? Could that actually be better for us? The Mismatch, presented by FanDuel Sportsbook.
All right, let's get into it. You're a Philly guy. You read all the same stuff we do. We haven't got, I will tell you, Lefkoe, on this edition of the podcast, we haven't talked about it at all. But since we last recorded, all this James Harden stuff has come out. Now you've got, Atlanta and a John Collins deal. Then you got Sacramento, and maybe they would take on Tobias Harris deal. Like, it does feel
I'm seeing Charlotte. Like, it's everywhere. I think the Harden stuff has to be posturing, right? Like when all of this first started happening, Morey, that's when he said, I'm not trading him unless it's for stars. Like, and it was sort of like, I know that he must have been in negotiations and everybody was like, I want him for nothing. And so he was like, I have to go so hard the other way to get some hand back in these discussions. And I feel like by saying we're okay by keeping him after the trade deadline and I might as well wait for Harden, I think it puts more pressure on the Kings of the world and all those other teams, I guess. Now, I mean, I remember when the Wizards were 10-3 and everybody was like, this could work. And now I'm looking over there. I'm like, what does Bradley Beal want to be there for? Like, come on, man. Like, you would be so good with Embiid. If Lillard wasn't hurt, I'd be very curious where those discussions would be with how Portland's playing. I heard, Chris, I loved your take about how De'Aaron Fox, it would just, all the analytic people would have to defend Morey, but also hate it. I thought that was funny. But I would love a Fox heel. The problem, when you talk to somebody that's a Sixers fan, will take anybody. Like anybody is better than our current situation because Embiid feels like the MVP. In the back of all of our minds, we're worried about how much time he actually has left. You know, like we don't want to talk about it, but that's the big conversation. So getting anything KOC is what I want, but I'm exhausted, Kevin. I'm tired.
What do you think,
yeah, I mean, I understand why you're exhausted. But I also understand the logic in just taking whatever is the best deal on February 10th. I get it, because Joel Embiid he might end up the MVP. What he's doing this last month is just absolutely unbelievable. Personally, like, I'm younger than you guys, but it's like he's one of the best bigs I've ever seen. Like, have we ever seen a big man like Joel Embiid with his range of skills, like what he can do not only on the post, but bringing the ball up the floor and taking pull-up jumpers? Like, have we ever seen a big like,
it's like all of this? Elijah Wan is like the, he's the comp,
but
right?
Elijah Wan couldn't do all of this either.
I heard the No Dunks guys talking about all the different 90s centers that he's brought into his game. Olajuwon's back to the basket, Shaq dribbling up the floor, Patrick Ewing's mid-range game. And I mean, there was a time where when Embiid would shoot the three, the city of Philadelphia would collectively go, why? And then we watch Chuck say, get in the block. What are you doing? And now, I mean, I feel like he's hitting one or two a game and they're backbreaker threes. I think he's had over 30 in 17 of the last 24 games. And you look out on the floor with him and you're like, Tobias ain't the guy. Like, what are we relying on? Furkan Korkmaz? This can't be it. But
and I think I feel like there is a difference between, that's where the break is, and maybe I've read the fan base wrong, between Morey and a frustrated fan base, which is he comes out on the radio and I feel like he presented Embiid is so great that we don't need to do something, and the fan base feels actually the opposite, which is Embiid is so great, we have to do something to take advantage of this greatness because you just never know. You never know, right?
Friday against the Clippers, he goes for 40 and they blow like a 20-point lead because there's nobody else that can do anything, and we've been waiting for Thibault to get a three-pointer now for 3 years, and that hasn't really developed. But yeah, I think you also have to understand that this is a very fractured fan base when it comes to age, because the process split the fan base in two, where the older generation said, I'm not, and I know Kevin knows about this, and I know you do too, but like the older generation still really questions Morey. Everybody is waiting because we don't put a lot of the roster mistakes on him. It really was on the Colangelos. Like all of the moves they made and the trades, and could they have Tatum? It was Brian Colangelo. So Morey misses a lot. The way in which Simmons goes down, that will be the verdict for Morey, for Philadelphia fans. What they get for him, how it turns into. But using the Philadelphia fan base by going on local sports radio is really the issue. Because when it happens on 97.5 or WIP, it's like bait in the water, man. Like, so until it happens, the only thing that all Philadelphia can agree on is we do not like Ben Simmons anymore. And we don't want to hear about it.
Do you want Harden?
I mean, if I could get Harden now, I think, yes, I would love James Harden. You know, like I don't care that he's arguing with the refs about inconsistent calls. Like him and Embiid together would be incredible. I look at the NBA this season. We got 3 to 5 more weeks of KD being out. Kyrie's not playing home games. The Bucks, while I think that they're going to the finals, are still kind of coming together right now. The fact that we don't know about Brook Lopez, I think is really big. The Heat are scary, but the West, like, yeah, I think the Suns and the Warriors are really good, but overall it feels like a very open year. And I don't know how many more open years you want to waste of Embiid's prime. And so just betting on it next year, I don't know. And I think Harden likes living in Brooklyn. But
the one thing that we did have, and Jake Fisher on Bleacher Report, he had a report out on Tuesday morning that said with Harden that he's fully committed right now to Brooklyn, but there's some stuff in there where he's not happy with Steve Nash's fluid rotations. He likes more of hot hand closing lineups. Jake put in there that he hasn't been happy with Kyrie Irving's part-time playing status, and he hasn't enjoyed living in Brooklyn compared to Houston because of the taxes, because of the climate. Like, it's some really specific stuff in there.
I hate it.
Really specific stuff. And he said, to be clear, there's been no trade requests. However, we have 2 weeks to go here. And with Harden, very clearly, it's been since before the season when he didn't sign the extension. We're seeing it now with the reports that are coming out that he's going to test free agency. If you're Brooklyn, there has to be at least a little part of you that's nervous about him wanting to leave. If you're Brooklyn, there's got to also be a part of you, and I thought about this last night, there's got to be part of you that's like, well, maybe, what if we did trade James Harden for Ben Simmons in the package that the Sixers were offering Houston? Could that actually be better for us? Because 2 reasons. Well, because he's Ben Simmons. You need a defensive player. You need a guy who's 6'10", can defend multiple positions, fill the Blake Griffin role. Blake can't do it anymore. Ben Simmons could be a better version. And also, and this is like the if the New York vaccine mandate changes for state workers, that would allow Kyrie Irving to play full time. It will be expiring in Connecticut. Other states will see those mandates expire as well. Maybe New York by April, May, June could also see it expire. So if you're for the Nets, you get a billionaire owner in Joe Tsai, you know what's happening before everybody else does. If you're Brooklyn, there's got to at least be a little bit of logic in the deal like that. I'm just throwing that out there.
All right.